So next up, because Bill shouldn't introduce himself, we have Bill Diebel with Montana's Peer Network coming to share about how peer support can be used across a lifetime.
So this is a lot for me. Um, so we'll see how this goes. Um, so the purpose is to give you hope to all of our loved ones and those that we serve struggling with the behavioral health challenge. To bring an understanding of how peer support can be utilized throughout a lifetime. I want you to know that I believe anyone can recover from a behavioral health challenge. I'll start out with my story. Um, Symptoms for me for mental health challenges started to surface in my early 20s. And this is when alcohol became a coping mechanism. Very little alcohol was used in my teenage years. At the time, I was married and I had a daughter. This relationship quickly deteriorated and I got divorced. Being a good codependent, I married again quickly, uh, where the lifestyle was more open. And I found drugs, got divorced. Spent the next decade living on the streets, couch surfing. When I moved from Salt Lake to Seattle in 2002, my parents already knew that there was something more going on than the obvious, that I had a drug problem. So for me, using drugs and alcohol brought logical explanation to my mental health symptoms. For the next 5 years, my parents tried to help me. They had no idea or experience in dealing with someone with mental health issues and substance abuse issues. I would drift in and out of their lives. And when it would fit my narrative, I would concede to the help that they wanted to try to get for me. My mom thought I needed to be on SSI disability. Somehow, some way, around 2004, I agreed to see a mental health provider. Through a series of appointments, I was diagnosed. Schizophrenic. What do I do with that information? At the time, I pretty much disassociated. Wasn't able to handle that. For the next 3 years, my condition and my addiction deepened. I understood and even accepted that I was a drug addict. That was fine. I can deal with that. Mentally ill, the self stigma, the shame, the loss of hope. So, what was my saving grace? Law enforcement. Imagine that. This was the beginning of my recovery journey, whether I knew it or not. At the end of my jail sentence, I was now the property of the state of Washington. Court ordered to get a mental health evaluation and a chemical dependency evaluation, and had to follow all recommendations. This meant inpatient CD treatment, intensive outpatient afterwards, court ordered to do Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous 3 days a week. My mental health treatment required me to take medication. Game changer. I was assigned a provider, a case manager, and a peer support specialist. Dr. Mulcair Jones kind of talked about this next point. Looking back, I believe recovery was able to take hold as DLC, probation and parole, had addressed both challenges that I was facing, substance abuse and mental health. At the time, personally, I was just going through the motions, doing what I was asked. But something happened 9 to 12 months into this process. The question came to me out of nowhere, why not recover? What a transformative moment in my life. What did this all mean? I was hearing things for the first time that providers were telling me, that I was hearing in Narcotics Anonymous meetings. I was able and began to process information. I became interested in myself, not everything that was going on around me. This is where I began to pay attention to my peer support specialists at my mental health provider agency. I began to have hope, and that filled me full of fear. Hope is dangerous. I was starting to have feelings, good and bad. I began to recognize that my peer supporter was modeling recovery through me, through our interactions. Through the mental health agency that I was receiving services at, my peer supporter had developed a peer support training that mimicked the state training in the state of Washington. She added some additional things to the training where I had to complete a 100-hour internship after completing her training. I completed the training and the internship beginning of fall 2012. It is awesome to know where I am today. During that internship, I was looking online of places that had peer support specialist jobs. My mom and dad were planning on moving to Montana. I looked in Whitehall, Twin Bridges, Sheridan, Dillon, Butte. My parents wanted to be closer to their grandkids, and my brother was living in Whitehall. So during that internship, as I was looking, there was one place in Butte that offered peer support as a position, which was Western Montana Mental Health. All the jobs were closed. It's like, man. Working with folk rehab in the state of Washington, I was able to develop a resume, cover letter to be able to present. At this point, I had been out of the workforce for a decade. I did want to go back and let you know that I did receive SSDI benefits at the end of 2018. That process is another story. I decided to drop off a cover letter and a resume to Western Montana Mental Health fall of 2012. I began to work for Western Montana Mental Health January 2013. There are people in this room that saw me on my first day of work after a decade. This community here, Butte, has been part of my recovery process and continues to be part of my recovery journey. Anybody can recover. I'm the proof. Peer support. Recently, the Biden administration did a White House press release, strategies to address our national mental health crisis. One of the things that were mentioned is building a national certification program for peer support specialists, which will accelerate universal adoption, recognition, integration of peer mental health workforce across all elements of the healthcare system. So where can peer support be utilized? Based on the presentations that we've heard already today, each of those areas peer support can be utilized. There's youth peer support. There is Youth Move National. There is Youth Dynamics. In our local advisory council meeting, I'm reminded of our youth in the communities that struggle. We need to pay attention and give our youth the support that they need. Family peer support. I'll use my mom and dad as an example. They had no idea where to go for help. They had no idea how to help me. Our families need support. Montana's Peer Network has just created a new division for family peer support, where we will develop curriculum, standards, standardized training, and do the best we can to get it Medicaid billable. Our neighbors in Idaho already have Medicaid billable family peer support. Dr. Mulcair Jones also talked about Native Americans. We need Native American peer support. Montana Peer Network has begun forging relationships with key players to develop peer support training to be taught at the tribal colleges. We heard from CPS. Peer support can be utilized at DFS and CPS. The state has a RFP out, request for proposal, called the ART program, where a peer and his team with a licensed addiction counselor and gets referrals from CPS. CPS, DFS need peer supporters. Adult behavioral health peer support. This is what we have in the state of Montana right now. We're able to provide peer support services to our peers that get services at a mental health agency or at a state qualified substance abuse treatment center. We are brand new. We are 3 years in to peer support. We have a long way to go. Justice involved peer support. Criminal justice peer support. There are treatment courts, family drug court, mental health court, veterans court. Pre-release, probation, and parole. As you can see, I'll try and speak this way. As you can see, peer support roles across the sequential intercept model. If we can get peer support at every intercept of the sequential model, recidivism rate drops. People that get incarcerated drop. One of the goals of the sequential intercept model is to try and make sure that our folks with mental health or substance abuse issues don't end up in jail, that they get the proper treatment that they need. There's a lot of work to do. Right now, peer support is only funded through mental health agencies and SUD centers. The provider types need to open up. Peer support needs to be in our emergency rooms, at our hospitals, so that these folks can be met right where they're at, in the middle of their crisis. I ran kind of quick. I want to leave you with my vision of where I would like to see peer support go. Anyone, regardless of diagnosis or ability to pay, to be able to receive peer support services. Where do you want to see peer support go? One more ending thought. When Dr. Mulcair-Jones was talking about resilient community, that happens here, right now, today, with each of you. Each of you can make a difference. Thanks for letting me share.